Helen Yee here in Phoenix for UFC 274, being joined by the great, the legendary, and even though you have a twin brother, still the one and only Mr. Jon Anik. I love your shirt.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's good to sit down with you. It's good to see you taking a break from the pool to indulge us here at UFC 274. Yeah, I have an identical twin brother. He has hair down to his ass. People think I'm losing my hair. I could grow it. This is a choice, folks. This is a choice.
Yes, we all have a choice in life, and there's always so much going on. I know you spoke to the Schmo about what you called the high drama in the desert for that main event, but looking on the brighter side, there's a great rematch in the co-main event between Rose Namajunas, Carla Esparza. What do you make of that, and who do you think has that advantage going into that?
Well, I have a lot of happy, feel-good emotions about this fight. First, for Carla Esparza, who just wasn't going to be denied. And it's very difficult to put together a 5-fight winning streak in any division, but especially at 115 pounds, which is ubiquitously regarded as our best women's division. So by finishing Yan Xiaonan, she put herself in a position where she truly could not be denied. Unfortunately, the version of Rose Namajunas that she fought in 2014 just does not exist anymore. I feel like Namajunas is totally unrecognizable back then, just in not just the hair, but in terms of the pre-fight routine, shadow boxing in the octagon and bouncing all around. I mean, she talks now about confidence, composure, and calmness and everything else, and those really weren't a staple of all of her pre-fight rituals before. So it's a different version of Rose Namajunas. I do believe she should be more than a 2-1 favorite as she is here. I do think her takedown and wrestling defense is in an entirely different space than it was for that first meeting. But all of that being said, I certainly don't have to tell an expert on your level that wrestling is the great equalizer in modern-day mixed martial arts. And if Carla can get an early takedown and do something with it and plant a seed of doubt in the head of Rose Namajunas, perhaps she can win this fight. But I do believe that that Rose Namajunas, should be a bigger favorite than she's entrenched as, at least right now.
And like you said, with her calmness, I mean, we definitely saw that in that face-off yesterday when she and Carla faced off, which you did such a great job yesterday in the press conference. And Tony Ferguson, I mean, he looked like he was having fun up there, and he jokingly tried to ankle pick Michael Chandler.
Yeah. It was a good scene, and when we had our fighter meeting with Tony Ferguson, I said to him, "Are you feeling the love this week?" And he was sort of dismissive of that, but certainly at the press conference, he felt the love. And I do think it stands to reason that could be something that helps him on Saturday night, to have that crowd behind him, to give him that burst and that energy. And yeah, it was an absolute scene. I feel like Tony Ferguson's legacy is incredible, but I feel like historically he may end up being a little bit underappreciated because he never fought for the undisputed title. So I'm excited to see what he can do. And it's just crazy that this kind of week turned into, it was the most anticipated pay-per-view of the year, and now we're talking about all these Charles Oliveira circumstances. So thanks for asking about Tony.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Tony is definitely and always a fan favorite. But looking at UFC 274, I mean, that card is stacked top to bottom. So what's a fight on there that you think deserves a bit more shine?
Gosh, I mean, there's so many great matchups, 15 fights. I wish it was 11. But Khaos Williams and Randy Brown, I think both of those guys have a pedigree that could result in them being UFC champions. Now, some people might say slow your roll, but I certainly see them as future top 10, if not top 5 contenders. So fascinated by the featured prelim. They're both really elevating at the right time. And then a flyweight eliminator of sorts between Matt Schnell and Brandon Royval. Raw Dog Brandon Royval is one of the most exciting fighters in the sport. Schnell's a 5-tool player, and Royval watched a lot of Matt Schnell over the course of his life. So not that he's starstruck by fighting Matt Schnell, nor that he's over-respecting him, but, I do think that Royval has put Schnell on a pedestal, and sometimes it's interesting to see how you compete against a guy that you've had on that proverbial pedestal for so long. But that's a fight that jumps off the card. I've never called a Tracy Cortez fight, so I'm excited to see her fight live. So, yeah, we're excited. We're ready to go.
Yeah, a lot of excitement for sure. And someone else I saw this morning kind of peek his head into the weigh-ins, Paddy Pimblett, he's in town, and I know in the past you've talked about your thoughts on Khamzat, and he's the best prospect that you've seen, but where do you put Paddy and kind of his future in the UFC and in the lightweight division?
Well, I think skill for skill, Paddy Pimblett's probably a little bit underrated by the masses. I think so much is made of his larger-than-life personality and that accent that I could listen to all day. People make a lot of the fact that he bloats up to 190 pounds after his fights, but He's a willing grappler. He's an outstanding striker. In theory, he's only getting better, working with guys like Justin Flores out in California. So I'm excited for the future. It's a tough division. He's not the biggest lightweight in the world. So divisionally, it gives me pause in terms of his immediate contention. But he's definitely got that star power. And I guess the biggest difference I see in him and Khamzat Chimaev right now is that Khamzat is being prevented from his coaches from competing every 4 or 5 weeks, whereas Paddy Pimblett is realizing some financial success outside the octagon. He's okay competing a couple times a year, whereas Khamzat really wants to be in there 4 or 5 times a year, but because he's on this championship trajectory, they're trying to slow him down a little bit. But it's an exciting time, not to get long-winded on you, Helen, but people always talk about stars and star power in the UFC. And, oh, man, George St. Pierre's retiring, and Randy Couture and Anderson Silva. When's the next star? There's always new stars. Nobody was talking about Israel Adesanya 5 years ago, and look at him now. So the cupboard's never bare. Obviously, my job, a lot of it is building stars and helping the UFC to do that. But we got plenty of star power coming through the ranks.
But speaking of stars, and one who will be coming back in the heavyweight division, Jon Jones. I mean, what do you make of his heavyweight debut? And finally, we get to see him and how he's able to do, and especially against Stipe.
You're getting me excited. There are a few things in all of mixed martial arts, like a Jon Jones fight, and I think a lot of us that are a little bit longer in the tooth just remember when he beat Shogun for the title and just how dominant he was, putting everybody away. The sport is better with Jon Jones in it, and I always say, if they hung championship banners in Albuquerque, New Mexico, there'd be 15 of them at Jackson Wink MMA. So, let's put some respect on the name Johnny Bones. I do believe he should be a slight favorite against the consensus greatest heavyweight of all time, Stipe Miocic. I'm just hopeful that they can get that fight done. It seems like Jon is a little bit frustrated as far as the calendar is concerned. And Stipe, of course, has only been fighting once a year. But that is a huge fight, whether it's for the interim belt or not. I am jonesing to see Johnny Bones in that octagon again, especially at heavyweight.
But do you think that they'll be able to work something out with Francis and his contract?
I am hopeful. I really am. And I do believe Francis Ngannou at his core is a mixed martial arts fighter, and he wants to be in the UFC. This is the only place for him. So I'm confident that they will iron things out with Francis Ngannou. And, whether boxing is in his future or not, I really don't know. But there are some very big paydays and fights for Francis in the UFC, and especially, the Jon Jones fight. So I'm hoping that he's going to realize millions in the UFC. And, I do think Ngannou Jones, with respect to Stipe, is one of the biggest fights that we can put together. So maybe it happens, early 2023. We'll see.
Yeah, maybe Allegiant Stadium.
Oh, don't get me excited. That's a home game for you guys. But, yeah, I mean, we'll see. Obviously, we've been talking about Dallas and some of these big stadium shows that haven't necessarily materialized. But I'm really excited at the prospect of Jon being back. I don't know how long Stipe is for this game. But, yeah, you could do worse than Allegiant Stadium for that one for sure.
Well, definitely. There's so much excitement going on. And starting tomorrow night, UFC 274. I greatly appreciate your time. And for all your fans, what would you like to let them know?
I would just like to express my gratitude to everybody who has supported the One More Sleep movement. Obviously, it means a lot to me, and you're supporting cancer and autism research as well. And thanks for supporting the Anik and Florian podcast. And, I'm coming up on 11 years in the UFC, and I get a lot of confidence from the fans, especially going into a pay-per-view of this magnitude. So thank every last one of you.